Well, good day, good evening, good morning. Welcome to the office hours of Cluster API provider AWS. This is a CNCF Kubernetes subproject, called Kubernetes SIG subproject. And as such, we abide by the code of conduct, which basically means be nice to each other. If you could add your names as a list of attendees in the document, I've shared it in the chat window. Feel free to put a message into the chat window if you don't see the link, or if you need access. If you don't have access, you just need to join a Google group, and then you'll get access to it. Also, when you're in the doc, if there is anything you would like to put on the agenda for today, feel free to add that now as well. I'm going to put something on as well. As it is, we also give time right at the beginning of the meeting for anyone that is new, if they so choose, to unmute and say hello. No pressure, but if there's anyone that'd like to do that, I will stop talking for a few moments to allow that.
Okay, I'll try. Hello, I'm Leonard. I'm Site Reliability Engineer working for Kong. And we started to gain interest in Cluster API provider AWS recently. So in order to track the project, I decided to start attending the community meetings.
Brilliant. Well, welcome.
Thanks.
Actually, maybe one of your colleagues was one of the original contributors to the EKS functionality in Kappa, Michael Beaumont. I don't know if you know him. But,
oh, yeah, it works on the service mesh.
Yeah. So yeah, so I worked with Michael when we originally did the EKS implementation.
Nice.
Yeah, so he's a good person to know as well. Cool. So let me just add this note in there. So moving on to the agenda. So there is one PSA, unless anyone else wants to add any. So the first, well, the only PSA is version 2.1.4 was released at the end of last week. Basically just a small number of bug fixes in there. We still have one issue reported with this release if you're using Alpine and trying to use Cluster AWS ADM. So that's probably something we will have to investigate and do another patch release probably in the next week or so. So also, if you have any, I forgot to say this right at the beginning. Obviously, we use the raise hands feature in Zoom if you would like to comment on anything that's said. Completely forgot the script. It's been one of those days. But so we can move on to the agenda items. So Andreas, you have the first item.
Thanks. That's basically what we had in May. I guess I can quickly recap what it was about, because I had two topics back then. So this one is about machine pool nodes not being rolled. So no new service being created if the config changes. So if a machine pool refers to a kubeadm config, there are several fields in the kubeadm config which can change, let's say files or scripts or whatever. And then in most cases, you want new service to be created. How it works, copy whenever it detects a change to kubeadm config, such as spec.files, marking it here. It will not regenerate the bootstrap data secret immediately, but only later. So when it detects, hey, it's time to refresh the bootstrap token, of the token so new nodes can join. So it mixes both the config and the bootstrap token in one cloud init, or in the usual case, cloud init script, and puts that in a secret, but it doesn't update that immediately, but that's what we want. And then also Kappa specifically does not trigger an instance refresh, meaning rolling out new nodes through the auto-scanning group. in AWS when there is a change. So the problem is both in Capi not updating the secret in a reasonable time frame, and Kappa not rolling the nodes. And we discussed last time, does it actually make sense that a machine pool refer to a kube ADM config? And then several people investigated, including Cameron, thanks. So there's some quotes from Cecile, for example, in chat that says, yeah, the kube ADM config is used for all the instances, so this is on purpose. So we do not use a kube ADM config template, but just one kube ADM config object. So that's fine, that's expected. And Cameron, I think you found multiple points in a GitHub comment. So basically just your conclusion was that it's intentional. Yeah, this one. I'll let you read for a moment.
Yeah. I'm trying to refresh my memory, but when I looked at this, I was looking at the original proposal doc, which is what I linked to here in this comment. But basically the proposal for machine pools says that the kube ADM config will be shared for all of the instances in the machine pool. So that sounds
exactly right. You're coding it here, so it's meant to be mutable. So whenever you change a field, operators such as Capi and Kappa should kind of watch it and act upon it, such as reconciling or triggering an instance refresh. And yeah, this old ticket doesn't seem to have any progress, and it's quite huge.
Yeah.
I think this ticket here is also that old that it mentions that Cloud Init versus Ignition format could be difficult, which by now I think is supported.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Right.
it's old.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Yeah, so basically I'm come here again to just discuss what you want to do. So I do have this partial fix for Kappa mentioned in our meeting notes. What it does, in very short, it detects, is there a difference in the bootstrap data, or as we call it in AWS, the EC2 user data? Is there a difference apart from only the bootstrap token? Meaning, did anything in the node configuration change? If so, trigger an instance refresh. And it does so by looking at the difference between the previous and the new value of the secret, essentially doing a diff. And if it's more than the token value, which gets refreshed every 10 minutes, then yeah, hey, let's roll the nodes. It's really not perfect, because if we do have another format from Cloud Init, let's say Ignition or something encoded like base64 or whatever, then it will not work anymore. So it's definitely not a great fix, to be honest. I don't like it that much. And it only fixes part of the problem, right? So this Capi issue where it only updates every 10 to 15 minutes, this bootstrap secret, that's still the case. So we kind of have to fix it in multiple places, in Capi and in Kappa. And ideally, Kappa would watch the bootstrap secret, which it doesn't.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's partial and hacky fix. So we could talk about generic solutions, or I could also bring it to the Capi office hours as a general topic.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Yeah, I guess. Do you know if there is a? Is this the only issue upstream in Capi around this area? Do you know?
I didn't look much, to be honest. Cameron, do you know some more?
This area, you mean about the secrets refreshing?
Yeah.
I fixed a very similar issue, not with the kube ADM config, but with the EKS config object, which also can be referenced inside of a machine pool. if you're using the AWS, basically the AWS version of the service. But because that resource is managed by Kappa, it doesn't have the same problems. We don't have the split logic like we do here.
Yeah. But we could conceivably apply the same similar-ish fix upstream.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although so this reminds me of another, just reading this issue here in upstream Kappa reminds me of another old proposal where, again from Nadir, who around splitting and basically having a node agent, machine ADM, that would do the bootstrapping on the node. Yeah, I can see the reference to the qubit authentication as well. Yeah. So I don't know. I know I get to see it, but yeah. So we should obviously drive the change upstream to refresh the actual secret, because, like you say, that's one part of the problem, isn't it? But we could move forward with the Kappa side sooner rather than later, potentially, and get this change in.
I can probably give it a discussion in the copy meeting. I guess it's on Wednesdays.
Yeah.
Weekly. I actually do have to change to update the secret immediately. It's tested, but I'm not confident yet. So 90% done, let's say. So I'm ready to discuss it with them, I think. And then the other question is, so let's say there are different formats. And in one of them, we cannot diff against the bootstrap token because it's base 64 or something. Then we would probably also talk to Copy. So they provide us a way to check, hey, is there a difference or not? Like check some without the bootstrap token, let's say. So there's, yeah, I basically have to bring the whole discussion to them as well and see what they say, if you think that makes sense.
What would be the ideal way to detect the change in the resource when the resource gets modified in the webhook? The admission webhook detect the change from the resource.
So right now in Kappa, we compare the user data from the ASG with the new secret content, which is quite good because both are the latest version of the content, right? And then we kind of assume it's YAML or text.
Yeah, I was just trying to remember how it worked for the EKS config object. I believe we just use the webhook and use that to detect.
I don't know.
Which makes it much simpler. But obviously we can't do it here because the webhook is in Cappy.
Makes sense. Yeah, then I would guess let's pause on this partial fix PR for the moment. Guess I'll try to take it to this or next week's copy office hours.
Yeah, sounds like a good plan. So discussions. Cool. Yeah, and then we could hopefully then chat again about this in 2 weeks' time, or before async. Subject to
Good.
what? Yeah, on Wednesday. Brilliant.
Cool. Thank you.
Cheers, Andreas. And over to you, Cameron.
Similar sort of topic. I have a PR that I've had open for a little bit. We've gone a lot back and forth on how to improve it and workshop it, and I think it's in a pretty good state now. It's got a LGTM, but I'm not sure what else we need to do before this can be considered to be included in a release. If there's anything people are concerned about, if you haven't taken a look yet. This is fixing a couple of different bugs with the launch template, diff detection, and we ended up just rewriting the way it does diff detection entirely. Came up with a much better solution. I think the reviewers and I were able to brainstorm some really good ideas in here. So I'm just wondering what's needed to get this included in the next release.
So if we got one LGTM, who did the LGTM?
Scar.
Oh, okay, yeah. Cool. So basically, we just need an approval then. So we need to get, I guess, me and Kitta or Daniel to review and then approve.
Okay.
Cool. And is it classed as, I guess, one question purely from a release point of view? Is it bug? It's fine.
It's all bug fixes. There's no
Yeah.
new features in it,
Cool.
but it did end up rewriting the way diffs are detected for launch templates.
Cool. But as it's a bug, we can include it in a 2.1.x release them.
Right.
Cool. That's brilliant. That's good. Does anyone have any inputs on this one?
I think I have not followed it from the beginning, but I would take a look this week.
Cool.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'll do the same as well, Cameron. And also, if anyone else, obviously, I guess that's a call for action, isn't it? That any more eyes on this would be great. Cool. Go for Cameron.
Nope, that's it.
Cool.
Sorry.
Okay. Well, that's the end of our agenda. It's short and sweet today. Is there anything else anyone would like to talk about that isn't on the agenda today? And once, going twice.
I might want to talk about something that bothered us a bit. I haven't opened an issue yet about that because I don't know if it's worth mentioning. Since the version 2.0, we lost a little bit of capabilities for the customization of networking, if I understood correctly. And we don't have a way to select only a set of availability zones across to create the VPC, unless we have two ways to influence that. It's availability zone usage limit and availability zone selection, which say how many availability zones we can select and how to choose them, either random or alphabetical. But something that will be nice would be a way to just give a list of AZs just to create a VPC, allow a bit more granularity on the creation. The use case we have behind that is that we are trying to put a little bit of context, we are trying to match AZs for our customers. So we'd like to have a VPC that only spans the AZs of our customer as well. We know that we can restrict the subnets in which we deploy the nodes, as well as the subnets Carpenter creates, because we leverage Fargate and Carpenter and not machine pools. But directly being able to create a VPC that only targets specific AZs will be much simpler in the end.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, because otherwise, I guess what you're saying is even if you target specific subnets, you'll still have subnets for other AZs. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it means using node labels and selectors, which adds a lot of overhead. While if we only have VPCs that spans the AZs that interest us, we do not have the overhead of managing labels and selectors down the road for both Fargate and Carpenter.
So I guess we got a longer answer or longer solution to this problem. So there is discussions going on about rethinking completely how we specify the network in Kappa, and providing more I guess, customization out of the box, because a lot of times at the moment is if you want to customize it, you then have to sort of bring all of your own infrastructure, which is, yeah, it's not great. So, well, it's okay. It's, you know, it is what it is. But yeah, we want to provide a bit more of a middle ground and more customization options. So that's the longer answer. And there is a proposal around that I can forward on that. But I guess that's going to be a long way down the road. Because it affects everything. But there's probably something we can do. It's a long time since I've looked at that part of the code, but there's probably something we can do a shorter term fix. Does anyone know off the top of their head the API around this? Maybe.
I think it was mentioned in chat already, right? There's the availability zone usage limit and the availability zone selection.
Yeah.
It's ordered or random, so you cannot really explicitly choose.
Yeah, what I was thinking is since availability zone selection is a string, like a hack might be to allow like arbitrary values that might be like a comma-separated list of AZs, and then parse that if it's not like random or alphabetical. It might be like a quick hack without extending the API, but it's not very clean.
Okay, yes, we got to have these. Well, actually, we could. This is just thinking it out loud. It's we need to look at it more. So we could add an option to the availability zone selection, which could be, I don't know, for want of a better word, explicit, and then a new field which is the actual availability zones, maybe as a would be a string array, so you could do them individually. Maybe I'm just thinking, and that would be to change to the values here, but that could work. But that would work. We could potentially do that shorter term. Would that work? So
yeah, perfect.
Anyone have any thoughts whether that would be a bad idea or a good idea? Okay, well, Leonard, if you potentially, could you raise an issue?
I will.
So that we could then start sort of the discussion on, you know, the shorter term and the longer term fix for it. One question I would have is, if we're adding an enum option, does that class as a class, is that a backwards compatible change from the API point of view? I mean, do we need to bump the API version for that? We'd have to investigate that. I don't know off the top of my head. If anyone knows, feel free to shout out.
I think, yeah, we have to update the API.
Yeah. Okay. So we need to. So if we update the API version, then we need to do a version bump of.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Which is, you know, it's doable. We have done that in the past. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a list of items as well for the next API version, so maybe we can add this issue as well in that.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. Let's find that. Was it V1 beta 3? I think it is the issue. Okay. Yeah. So if we did decide to do a bump of the API version, yeah, Leonard, if you create your issue, then we can link it into this so that we know that when we bump, we could get it included.
Okay, sure. I will create the issue later today.
Brilliant. Cool. Well, I shall. Anyone else have anything they'd like to discuss? Cool. Well, I'll pause recording and see you all again in 2 weeks. Sometimes we stay on after this as well for something we call after hours, and sometimes we do informal help on issues and talk about and do some bug triage. So if anyone fancies doing that, feel free to stay on. But I'm going to pause the recording and call the meeting to an end.
Right. See you next time.
See you. Bye.